Mitch, it's been a hectic day thus far, but we've gotten our first, I think, major fantasy impact signing for the afternoon. Sam Darnold inking a 3-year deal with Seattle. We talked about Geno Smith the other night. We wondered what the Seahawks were going to do. It sounds like they had a contingency plan to essentially get the pick for Geno Smith and then pay money. Probably got a cheaper deal on Sam Darnold than Geno Smith may end up getting. But a 3-year, $110 million contract with the Seahawks. Probably more like a 2-year deal, so kind of a 2-year commitment. Dynasty purposes, what's your initial thought on this for Darnold? Obviously, he's down some weapons. Maybe they're going to run a little bit of a different offense. What's your initial take?
Yeah, this is, I think it's best case for the Seahawks, NFL-wise, but Dynasty-wise, it puts Darnold in that really weird spot to where you feel good for him being your starter for the next 2 years. You know, it's probably going to happen unless he just goes out and completely bombs this year. But are you ever going to be really happy putting him into your lineup? And that's where I'm going to kind of have the issue. It was like when they moved on from Geno Smith, we heard a lot in the Discord, hey, you know, Geno Smith's not that good anyway. So, hey, great move by the Seahawks to get a 3rd-round pick for him. But now they're kind of replacing him with the same kind of guy, you know, a little bit more rushing ability, but not a whole bunch. And so for me, it's really hard to be like, you know what? We know where Darnold is for the next 2 years now. He finally has his position solidified. I'm going to go out and try to trade for him. I just don't see myself willing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sliding scale though, right? Like, obviously he's not a QB1. But where do you slot him in? Let's take a look at KTC, where they have Sam Darnold right now. If we pull it up, I know I had KTC fired up here. I might have to just go back to this. I believe he was QB 25. Actually, I don't have KTC pulled out. No, I do. Here we go.
Yeah, I got him at 26.
Sam Darnold, quarterback 25. He's at the low end of that not sure what to do QB2 range. Does he move at all for you, or does this just solidify him as he belongs in that same argument with guys like Tua and Goff, Dak, all those guys? I mean, I'd probably prefer a couple of those guys over Darnold, but given the multi-year commitment here, probably, do you feel like he belongs in that tier where now if you had him, you're just, I can live with him being my QB2? Or are you actively trying to do something with him? Are you trying to tier up? You trying to cash out? Like, what are you doing now that he probably stays in this range, at least for me?
I would like to tier up, but the problem is I think when you tier up, the person you're trading with, you kind of have to tell them that story on, hey, there's some momentum building behind Sam Darnold, so they believe they're buying low. And, you know, we are trying to trade up to someone who's already better, but they believe Sam Darnold can get better. For me, it's really, really hard to see him jumping up into, let's say, the quarterback 18 sphere where you have Dak, who I just believe is better. JJ McCarthy has that rookie hype that we've seen in the comments. Everyone's still really high on him. Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I'm not a huge Trevor Lawrence guy, but I don't see Darnold being able to go out on the field and improving so much that he's going to be able to go over the top. I think the only case that I would have been able to buy into Sam Darnold this offseason and be willing to go get a lot of shares to be my quarterback 2 on the roster is if he went back to the Vikings, just because of how elite that offense can be. And with the Seahawks, it's a great position for him NFL-wise. I just, starting him each week in Dynasty, I'm not going to love it.
So would you add to Sam Darnold to get Bryce Young?
No. But it's hard with those young quarterbacks because they're kind of above them by default. You know what I mean? Because I use that default thing a lot. And so, but Bryce Young's not a guy I'm going to go out and acquire anyway. So if I have Sam Darnold, I'm like, cool, I'm good having Sam Darnold. Now, if anyone is, you know, willing to give me a plus, then, you know, we could talk about something there.
I mean, isn't that kind of what the tier up in my Keep Trade Cut? I need to close Keep Trade Cut. It's the absolute shittiest site to try to stream with. So I'm going to turn Keep Trade Cut off here. It's absolutely terrible. Sorry if the connection's not great, but we'll get to Justin Fields. I see some comments about Justin Fields. Let's go over to Sam Darnold, throw this up there. I think that's where the problem with this tier is if he's quarterback 25, 24, 23, you really have to fish around your league and say, okay, I have to have my personal conviction on whether it's Dak, Love, Goff, whoever it is, and then go and say, I'm willing to pay the tax and maybe even a little bit more, because if you've been holding Sam Darnold all offseason, sure, you wanted him to go back to the Vikings, but this is what you were praying for, right? A big contract that locks him in as a starter. That way you can include him in a deal where somebody says, I'm getting a starter that's not a 1-year rental back. So you may have to actually pay a little more, but you're able to move him in the type of deal where you're getting credit for another legitimate young starting quarterback in the trade. Maybe that only counts for 60% of the trade value, but it's better than what the alternative could have been, is he goes back to the Vikings and then he doesn't start all the time right away. And then people don't even want to trade for him at all, right?
Yeah, it's with Darnold. So we know Cam Ward's going to come in and be immediately valued over him. Shedeur Sanders is probably going to be valued more at him on the team that actually drafts him. We know there's a lot of hate out there for Sanders, so some might be off him, but the team that actually drafts him, they're going to have him valued over a Darnold type. So then you can't get up to Bo Nix, Drake May, Baker, Goff, Trevor Lawrence. So that's the hard thing, is how much are the Seahawks going to have to go out there and pass with JSN being their only viable pass catcher for Darnold to really improve? And he's going to a worst offensive line, and he was already sacked like the 9th most times last year. And so, like, there are a lot of things playing against this, to while, like I've said, NFL-wise, brilliant move by the Seahawks. They saved money, got a 3rd-round pick, and probably have close to the same quarterback as far as what Geno Smith was. But dynasty-wise, I just can't get there with him.
Well, and the chat's saying the same thing. Once you leave the honeypot spot of Minnesota with that offense and those weapons, he wasn't going to go anywhere better. And he wasn't going to go back to Minnesota and have any more job security than he had with this move, or if he signed somewhere else. So there really wasn't a place where you were just like, oh my God, he signed there and it's better than it was. This is more of, he's rescued that volatility that he's had for the last couple months, and now you have something you can go do with him at probably a decent clip compared to what you could have if he would have gone back to the Vikings, or, he wouldn't have got this type of contract. Now you'd have been stuck on a guy where people go, is he actually viewed as a starter in the league? That's what this contract did. I put up some data for both the Vikings. Let me see if I can get it to load for the Seahawks or the Vikings last year, but I got Minnesota and Seattle, just how they ran their offense. I wanted to show you something, Mitch, how different it was. Here were the numbers, the pass rate over expected situationally for the Vikings last year. What do you notice? Every one of these numbers is positive.
Yep.
So not only a neutral passing rate in the top 10 for the Vikings, but even situationally, all of these situations, the Vikings are a little more aggressive than normal. I mean, you look at these situations, 2nd and long, 3rd and short. Those are 2 totally different types of situations with different personnel, but the Vikings were the most aggressive, at least above 10%, 11% above league average in terms of passing rate. And every scenario here, the only one they were neutral was 1st and 10. So they're like middle of the pack in terms of, I think they were like at a 51% neutral pass rate or something. It's not extremely high, but it's not at the bottom of the league. But everything else here. Now let's go to the Seahawks. Look at this. Only one number.
One time.
Interestingly, after they run for a first down, they're just passing. They're straight up passing. So that, maybe that's a little predictable, but everything else much more conservative. You mentioned the offensive line. What was that site? Drop for everybody. What was that site you used to kind of get the general gauge on offensive lines?
I believe it's NFLlines.com, but let me make sure that that's actually the case. Yeah,
that's a good thing to kind of keep an eye on as a bunch of these teams sign free agents and stuff like that, kind of get an idea of how much the line maybe changed from last year. But I'm looking at this, and we just expect that he's not going to have as good of weapons. And I wanted to show this because the offense is obviously going to run differently. So you can probably take the 545 pass attempts that Darnold had last year. They ran 62.5 plays per game. Seattle last year was at 60.5 plays per game. So 2 less plays per game. less aggressive situationally, and then less of a pass run split in neutral situations. So you can probably just take 10% off the top of Sam Darnold without talking about the weapons, all of those things, right? It's just the expectation has to go down. And then you mentioned they only have JSN. Like in this last thing I'll plug is the Trinity. I mean, look at the Vikings Trinity last year. What have I always said? What have we talked about with the Trinity, Mitch? When we see two guys way above that line, it's because they're really good.
Yes.
And or the situation, or, it's a multitude of things. He's not going to have that on Seattle. So I think the takeaway for me is just do what you exactly said. Like, this is your window to sell a manager that you are giving them back a starting quarterback that is not going to lose his job in 8 weeks. But I'm with you. If I have Sam Darnold, I'm trying to tier up, even if it is just a tier up to Michael Penix or Bryce Young or somebody, even if I don't think they're going to outscore Sam Darnold. Can't you see a world where somebody is really excited about Michael Penix after 4 games?
Yes.
Oh, man. Did you see those first 4 games? He's slinging it all over the yard. Whereas Sam Darnold, okay, maybe he's winning some games, but just feels like this is the opportunity to pivot up, and you're going to have to add something to that.
Let me ask you real quick. So let's say you were a manager last year who traded it'd be, a future first, because we saw a lot of future first traded for Sam Darnold late in the season. If you were that manager, you knew you had a pretty good idea he would be a starting quarterback in 25. Are you happy with this landing spot, knowing that you gave up a future first to kind of make a small playoff push last year, but have a viable starter moving ahead? Are you okay with that price that a lot of people paid 4 or 5 months ago now?
I think so, because you used that first to get something to help you win last year. The key takeaway is he worth a first today? I don't think you can necessarily sell Darnold for a first, but I can include him in a deal that gets me 70% of the way there. So I think it's always like, do I really want to pay a first for a running back down the stretch? No. But if that running back helps me win, and then I can think of Derrick Henry last year. You might have paid a first for Derrick Henry for the second half of the season. You can't get a first today, but you know what? You could get a second and a third. So it's not like you paid and got nothing. If you ever choose to go the other way, you can get some money back. So it's no different than, renting something or buying something, using it once, and then reselling it on the open market and saying, I only got 60% what I paid. Yeah, but I bought, this is kind of nasty, but I bought those pair of shoes. I hooped in them a couple times, and then I sold them and I got some money back. That's kind of how I'd look at this. You have to look at it as it's a rolling investment. It's not like I lost a first and I'll never get anything back unless you sit on the asset like we were talking about. So yeah, we're going to do a Justin Fields video here shortly. It'll be about 3:15. We'll go live. We'll talk Justin Fields. I try to work on the Keep Trade Cut. Just killed the stream. I'm not going to put Keep Trade Cut anymore. It's just full of ads and it's not, not worth it. But we had a couple super chats that come in, so I want to hit these before we get off mix. We have Michael, coffee on me now. Thank you, Michael. With Metcalf getting traded to the Steelers, what's JSN's trade value right now?
I think it's going to boost him easily into the top 10. If he's not there, he might be.
I think he's already there, man.
Right now, I know Fantasy Calc has him at 12 overall. I would say it probably puts him in the Brian Thomas sphere because people are going to talk him up. He had a lot of fans coming out of the draft. He hit really well last year. So I definitely think his value is going up. He's not a guy that I'm personally going to be trading for, but his value is definitely a lot higher today, than it was 4 days ago before the Metcalf trade.
Garrett Wilson or DK Metcalf or Garrett Wilson or JSN? Both have new quarterbacks. Who are the people going to like more?
Oh, people are going to like JSN more.
You think? Even with the Justin Fields unlocked DJ Moore? You don't think they'll apply that the same logic to Garrett Wilson or no?
I don't. Yeah, I think JSN's going to have higher.
Okay. And let's just assume 12 by 11 lineup, nothing fancy. Draft pick straight up. That's all you have offered. What would you take for Darnold? What would the line be? No context. So it's not that you have a second quarterback, third quarterback, whatever. Just liquidate. I don't want him anymore. What pick would you take?
203, 204.
Interesting. You'd obviously aim higher, right? Just go down the line.
Without a doubt. I mean, I want higher. It's just realistically, in 70% of leagues, what am I going to get? I would love to say a late first. We've seen multiple trade conversations with Geno Smith in the Discord this past week. People are trying to move him for a mid-second, and they're hesitating on either paying a mid-second or trading him for a mid-second. And I think Darnold, it's just, I can't do that for a starting quarterback that I think is going to start for the next 2 years. So if someone's going to want to come get Darnold, it's going to have to be the 202, 203, right around there.
Yeah, I think I leverage the fact that this is a quarterback class that if there's a quarterback needy person, obviously they would be if they're coming after your Sam Darnold. Leverage the fact that their 111's not getting him a quarterback probably.
Yep.
So see if you can maybe find a way to get a little bit more, and without telling them, say, hey, you're not getting the QB2 at 111. So what will you kick onto that pick, or what are you willing to do to make this happen? Because obviously that's what you're going after. So we'll be back in about 10 minutes, 3:15. We'll jump on, talk about Justin Fields' impact. Thank you for the super chats. Click on the QR codes if you're not already part of the community, ddfantasyfootball.com. I'll be back in there. Mitch will be back in there as soon as we're done with these streams, assuming there hasn't been anything absolutely shell-shocking that is broken in the last 10, 15 minutes. We'll be jumping in the Discord and pretty much hanging out there for the rest of the day. So thanks, Mitch. See you soon.